Welcome to NxtGen Nexus. We are here to empower the next generation in family business. My name is Gideon Grunfeld, and it is my pleasure to welcome you to the virtual launch party for this amazing mission, for this amazing organization. It is truly an honor to be here, delighted that you are all here. And this is the continuation of something that is not only global and timeless, but also modern in the most modern way, as you will see. Family business is the oldest business that there is. If you think about it, whether people were sitting around the campfire in prehistoric days with their Neanderthal cousins, hunter-gatherers, we have as human beings essentially done business, shared personal relationships, shared business relationships, done that mixture of status and money and emotion for so many years. And one of the things that's really ironic is that in today's world, where family business is still incredibly important all over the world, it's become harder and harder for members of family businesses, especially those next generation, that second and third generation, to find a place, to find a community, to find a home where people get what it was like and what it is like to be in a family business. And that is what NxtGen Nexus is all about. It's a community, it's a place to have fun, it's a place to learn, it's a place to share with people who are like you and have different experiences than you. It's a place to improve your business. It's a launch of something that really has global dimensions. And you will see that as we're trying to do this launch party, we're going to show some of the main features, some of what the main tenets, some of the mission of NxtGen Nexus is as we build this amazing community specifically targeted, specifically designed for that next generation in family businesses. So that's why we're here, and we have some amazing presentations. We have entertainment. We're going to show you exactly how to join this amazing community. So before we do that, let me just pause for a second here. Let me give you some housekeeping, which is, this is like theater in the round. This is not like you go to the theater and you're far away from the audience. This is like sitting around the dining room table with your family, right? And so you can see the other people who are here. So what we recommend that you do to improve your experience of this, to get the most out of the presentations that we do have set up for you, if you go to the top right-hand corner of your screen, you will see that there's a little drop-down menu with two options. And we recommend you will get much more out of this. This is going to be much easier for you if you hit the speaker view. The speaker view allows you to basically, what's going to happen is for whoever is speaking, they will show up in the center of your screen. Otherwise, you're going to see all the people who are here as they continue to stream in. So highly recommend take a second if you haven't done so already. So all of you are going to be muted, but you will get a much better experience if you go to the speaker view. So with those housekeeping matters out of the way, let me just add one other item. If you do have a technical question, or even if you have a question that you want to, in terms of what we're talking to the people making presentations, you can add it to the chat feature in the bottom right. So if you open up at the bottom of your screen, hit chat, you'll see a panel come up and you can type your question there. If you have a technical question, recommend that you direct it to one of two people, Kathleen and Donna. They'll say host is next to their name. Kathleen is waving right now. So those are the people, the powers behind this who are really running the show. They're the people behind the scenes who are making it happen. So if you have a technical question, that's where you get that answer. So with that housekeeping matters out of the way, let's make sure we really begin by thinking about and experiencing just how global family businesses are. Some of us are in Los Angeles, some of us are in the Philippines, some of us are all over the country in the United States, all over the world. And when people see this later on, it really will truly be a global experience. So I direct your attention to just watch. We're going to bring up a video for you to show you a little bit about the global reach of NxtGen Nexus and family businesses.
Family business NextGens face similar issues and have similar opportunities, whether they are in Los Angeles or Lagos. Meet some of our global contributors.
Hi, my name is Jason Ma, founder and CEO of 3EQ in Palo Alto. I mentor the next generation of leaders in advising families to help them achieve great outcomes in business, lifelong learning, and personal success. I know how important peace of mind, good relationships, and risk mitigation is. This also helps with legacy and succession planning.
Hi, I'm Renata Barcelos from Brazil. I'm a business consultant and a professor specialized on organizational ambidexterity, which is joining efficiency and innovation, especially for traditional companies. I am very glad that I was invited to be a member of NxtGen Nexus so we can discuss these issues with family businesses. And I invite you all that are interested on family business issues to become part of NxtGen, to follow us, to be with us to discuss the issues of the family businesses. See you.
Hi, I'm Logan Yanoviak. I'm a co-founder and managing director at Providence Capital Group. We're based in the Bay Area. My company helps food and agriculture enterprises raise impact capital. I'm also an expert on ESG, which stands for Environmental, Social, and Governance. I've joined the community as a monthly contributor and will be sharing my insights with those of you who are interested in doing well and doing good with your investment dollars. More soon, and I look forward to staying in touch.
This is Hania Hamoud, a Lebanese lawyer and a certified family business and wealth advisor based in Lebanon. I represent the second generation of Hamoud Law Firm. I'm also the founder of Usuluna, the Center for Family Enterprises and Wealth. In my PhD, I developed the legal model of the family business, and I believe the legal perspective is the missing piece in the puzzle.
Hello, I'm Heath Goldman, president of Icon Wealth and Legacy Partners. At Icon, we focus on working with business owners and real estate families in the areas of estate planning, succession, and wealth transfer. In addition, we provide liquidity when families need it most by utilizing life insurance solutions. I'm thrilled to be part of the NxtGen Nexus community here in LA and part of the leadership team, building a vibrant NxtGen community.
Hi, I'm Meshi Lamy at London, LA, and Tel Aviv. I'm delighted to join NxtGen Nexus as part of a NxtGen family member, as well as the founder of Dr. Lamy Consulting, a company specializing in helping family offices and family businesses deal with the non-financial aspects of their business, wealth, and life. Please do join me on my monthly webinar interview series, as well as my column, Crossing the Generation. See you there.
Hello, my name is Nikia Anani. I am based in Lagos, all the way in Nigeria in Africa. I run a consultancy practice called the Nikia Anani Practice Limited, where I focus on building generational bridges in family firms. I help build and ensure that the two generations, the founding generation and the next generation, are well connected. My monthly column is on intra-leadership, matters bordering on entrepreneurship and leadership that are relevant for next gens.
My name is John Churchward, and I live in Davis, California. I work with Marwood Company, a commercial real estate investment and development firm based in San Jose. We are active with projects located in opportunity zones, and our investors really like these projects for not just the tax benefits, but also the positive impact that these projects are going to have on their communities. So my role with NxtGen Nexus will be to provide content related to opportunity zones in real estate investing.
Hi, my name is Natalie McVeigh, and I'm really excited to be part of the NxtGen Nexus community. I'm a family-owned business advisor that's been working with families for over a decade that have family enterprises, whether that's a business, a philanthropy, or joint assets, to help them navigate the opportunities and unique challenges for what they want to do next.
Hola, I'm Dunia Guzman. I am from Monterrey, Mexico, and we own a family consulting firm, Acator Consultores. My dad founded it back in 1996, and I joined him in 2003. Together, we've seen many families all around the world. For sure, we've seen mainly in Mexico, that's where we are, but we had the opportunity to work with families in France, in China, in Japan, in Brazil. And I can tell you that what we've seen is that we share the same challenges and the same questions around the future. So that's why when we found out about NxtGen Nexus, we were sure that it would add lots of value for future generations.
See right there a very small cross section, whether it's Brazil or Lebanon or Lagos, Nigeria, or various places, the East Coast, the West Coast of the United States. There is something universal. The accents might be different, there might be local issues here and there, but some of what you've met, some of the people who you just saw are the contributors to this community, people who are going to provide content and wisdom. You met people who are both advisors and consultants to family-owned businesses. You met advisors, whether they're real estate experts, financial advisors, lawyers, a whole host of people who are here to share and to grow this common vision, this global vision of that if you can help the second and third generation of family-owned businesses, you're going to change the world, because that's what family-owned businesses have been done since time immemorial. And that's what NxtGen Nexus is all about. It's a global community, but we'll also show you there are ways for you to have specific places within this global online community to log in, to be participating with people within your communities, within your city, within your country. It's both a global experience and it's also a local experience. It's for both people who are members of they are the next gen in a family-owned business, and there's also a way as advisors to contribute as well. So one of the things that we were really thinking about for such an amazing concept, you have to kind of look at two different dimensions. Just think of what the people on those videos talked about. They talked about the finance, the emotion. My father, my grandfather, my grandmother started the business. You have all these dynamics. And so one of the things that we were absolutely blessed to find is that we were introduced to this amazing author named Jennifer Risher. And Jennifer last year published a book called We Need to Talk, a memoir about wealth. We're going to bring up the cover of the book for you in a little bit. And so what makes Jennifer such a perfect person to talk about is that she wrote a book and also decided to publish it in the middle of all the global things which are happening and all the turmoil. And it really has gotten an enormous reception. The New York Times has reviewed it. You can go online and see lots and lots of reviews. It's really struck a nerve. It really is about her story, her family story, about getting comfortable talking about money and family dynamics. And we thought this is an absolute perfect topic, exactly for next gens, exactly for family-owned businesses. I am proud to actually have my very own copy of Jen's book, We Need to Talk, a memoir about wealth. So please join me in welcoming Jennifer Risher, and we will have an opportunity to talk to her. And we are just very fortunate to do so. Jennifer, so let's start with the title of your book. You say we need to talk, so let's talk. Tell us a little bit about your story about wealth and money, and how did that all come into being?
Thank you, Gideon. Thanks for having me here. And yeah, so when I was 25, I got really lucky. I joined Microsoft and I met my husband, David, and I got stock that ended up being worth hundreds of thousands of dollars. And then 6 years later, when David and I were married and expecting our first child, he took a job at a small, unknown startup that was selling books on the internet called Amazon.com. And the company went public. We were in our early 30s and we had more money than we could wrap our heads around. And really, wealth surprised me. It doesn't look or feel like what Hollywood sells us. I didn't find myself in a sparkly private club hanging out and sharing financial secrets. I found myself alone in sort of a strange silent space where no one was talking much about money at all. I was upset at a friend's resentment. I was worried about raising spoiled, entitled children. I wasn't sure if I should give to family members or how best to approach philanthropy. I really felt alone. And, wealth can be isolating because normally, if I have a problem or a question, I turn to friends. If I want to figure out, should our 16-year-old have a curfew? I talk to everyone I know. It's sort of how I do my research. I get their ideas, I hear about their experiences, I get advice. And just talking is helpful because it lets me know that my question is normal and that it's valid and that it's shared. But the same doesn't happen with money. And I couldn't talk about having a lot of it. So I couldn't really talk to friends about all these issues that were coming up for me. And I thought, well, I'll turn to books. But there really were no books. So I wrote my book because mine's a story I'd want to know about if it hadn't happened to me. But I also wrote my book for the millions of Americans like me who have more money than they had growing up, or they have more money than many of their friends, or they have more money than others in their extended family. I'm, because of the fairy tale that we have in our heads around wealth, the experience can feel strange. So I'm sharing my story to help other people understand their own. And my goal is not to show people how to do rich right. I don't have the answer for that. My story is not prescriptive, but I'm offering up a story that hasn't been told, that explores things like how challenging it can be to travel with another family that doesn't share your resources, or how stressful it is to feel a friend's jealousy and not be able to share what's going on in your life, or how painful it can be to feel as though your parents disapprove of what you have. So I want to validate and normalize these experiences, and I also want to get us talking. Because the more I talk about money, the more I realize that it's not money per se that we don't talk about, it's the emotions behind the money. And these emotions are universal. It doesn't really matter how much you have in your bank account. If you have parents, if you have a sibling, if you have a partner, if you have friends, you probably know, money can be uncomfortable to discuss because we're afraid. We're afraid of hurting someone else's feelings. We're afraid of not measuring up. We're afraid of rejection. We're afraid of not sounding unknowledgeable. We have a lot of money shame. So I'm really hoping that my book becomes a catalyst for conversation.
No, and I think it already has. You can just look from the New York Times reviews. It really has. So let's talk a little bit about since we're in a forum here for next generation of family-owned businesses. So obviously your story specifically, you and your husband's story, and one of the things that's really cool about the book, it's also a love story. It's a romance about how you met while you were working. It's not just, it's sort of an interesting story in and of itself. But how did this affect your family once your family did sort of become aware? It's not like you could hide out. Amazon and Microsoft are about as global a name as there is, right? So people kind of presumed or probably knew. So how did this affect your family?
Well, that's an interesting question. Yeah, it should have been obvious, but to keep the status quo, no one talked about it. So for a decade, my parents never really addressed it, or we never talked about it. But one of the things that we did do is I have a younger brother, 2 years younger, and a long time ago, he graduated from college and he went into the Peace Corps, and then he came home and got a master's in Spanish and became a high school Spanish teacher. And he wanted to buy a house. And so he was, thinking about buying this house, and my husband and I, offered him $20,000 towards the down payment. And he refused our gift. He said he wanted to live within his own means. And at this moment, his refusal hurt my feelings. I felt as though he was sort of looking down at our money, and I felt I was upset, but I didn't say anything. And then a couple years later, when he got married, we again sent a check, and this time he accepted. And then when his first child was born, we sent another check, and he and his wife thanked us. And we began to send money every year. And over the course of many years, he stopped acknowledging our gifts. So I'd write a check in December and hear silence. And it felt like this money was disappearing into a void. And I began to feel resentful. I felt like he was taking me for granted, but I didn't say anything. And instead, what I did, and I think we all tend to do this, is I started to tell myself stories. Well, he's embarrassed, or oh, he thinks we have so much money that it doesn't mean anything to us. It doesn't mean that we're giving him a gift. It's nothing. And I didn't say anything, but, and I'm not proud to admit it, but a couple years ago, I just didn't send a check. And when my brother and I were corresponding over email, at the end of one of his notes, he said, wondering if a certain year-end check is just late in the mail. Is it? And that made me really angry and shocked. And of course, I was writing this book about talking about money. I was like, oh my gosh, we have to talk. And so but it wasn't comfortable. I mean, I really had to sit down and figure out what I was feeling, what I hoped to achieve. I set up a time, let's call. You know, it isn't comfortable because we haven't built up that muscle on how to talk about money. And so when we got on the phone, I just said, you know, my feelings are really hurt that you haven't, you know, acknowledged or thanked us for our gifts. And he apologized right away. He said he hadn't realized, and that he thought it was more comfortable for me if he didn't make a big deal of money, which completely made sense to me given how we grew up. And so then we started to really connect, you know, and as two people who trust and love each other, we put money in its place, not as a tool, not as a, you know, not as something bigger than us, but as a tool, right? So then once we were connected, then we could talk about the money in a way that was, it just felt like a tool. So as he said, you know, I don't need this money, but I really appreciate it. And I'd never asked. And I said, you know, I don't care what you're doing with it, but I want to know. I want to be part of your life. So it really was so helpful to have that conversation. And I've experienced that over and over.
Yeah, so obviously, from the title of the book and having read the book, I mean, it's obvious that your basic advice is don't make this a mysterious subject. Let's, you know, make it something we talk about. So let's talk about what that's like in the context of a family-owned business. When you're that next gen, where this isn't like asking for a pay raise, you know, you literally could be talking to the people who literally gave birth to you, who your very existence you owe your life to, or you're the second or third generation and you're part of this legacy. So all of these conversations, whether it's not going to be likely the specific example of what you did, you know, getting financially well off from stock options. That's only one scenario. But what do you recommend specifically to parents and siblings and especially the next gens themselves about how do you talk about money in the context of status and emotions and misunderstanding and the shared history that we have? What advice do you have for what people should kind of do in that situation?
Yeah, you know, I think we need to acknowledge that it's not easy because money is very emotional. And I think it's almost harder to talk to people who we're closest with. It's hardest to talk to family members and friends. And unfortunately, my advice is get uncomfortable, because this isn't easy, and you have to kind of, you know, put yourself out there. But on the other side of those conversations, similar to kind of what happened with me and my brother, there's a sense of relief, a connection, and then there's this chance to learn and grow. So, you know, I actually have like 5 steps you can go through, and, you know, there's all different moments or different situations that can be hanging over your head around money that you're avoiding. Maybe it's a friend. Maybe it's a friend who always wants to go out to a really expensive restaurant that you can't afford, or it's your sister who says, "Oh, you're remodeling again." Or it's a in-law who gives to your spouse's siblings, but doesn't give any financial gifts to you. Or you're going out with a couple that are constantly talking about all the vacations they're going on. And it's sort of annoying. Or so there's all these different scenarios. And how do you deal with them? I think the first thing you have to do is figure out what you're feeling and kind of what your intentions are. So in the case of your friends are always asking you to go to a restaurant you can't afford, you think, well, okay, am I resentful? Or, you know, am I worried that it's going to hurt the friendship? No, actually, I feel ashamed that I can't afford that restaurant. So you get clear about what you're feeling, and then you set up a time that's emotionally neutral to have a conversation. And when you have that conversation, step 3, I think, is really acknowledging that it's going to be uncomfortable, that it's gonna get messy. You're gonna say things wrong. You have to give each other permission to kind of fumble around. And once you kind of create that safe space, that's when you can have a really important conversation where you listen. Maybe you speak for 5 minutes and then you let your friend speak for 5 minutes. And maybe, when you say this, your friend's like, wow, I had no idea, dinner's on me. I don't care. Or maybe your friend's like, oh my gosh, I'm in so much debt. I'm glad you said this because I didn't realize. And, it doesn't matter where we go. I just want to be with you. Whatever it is, because we tell ourselves stories, I think we often don't understand kind of what is truly going on. And I think that conversation really will bring you together. And then step 5 is really just being grateful and thanking your friend or your mother or your sibling or whoever it is for having that conversation, because it isn't easy. And I think giving each other permission to get it wrong, but to keep going is an important step in the process.
So it sounds like a lot of what you're suggesting is that one way to make progress is to find a space to talk to someone one-on-one. So it could be the opposite dynamic of, it could be the child or the grandchild who says, look, I've been working and working and working, and I'm not getting enough money from this business, and I'm worried about how we're going to do. It could be issues about, why is my sibling getting more or less, or are they more or less involved than I am in the family business? And so when you talked about a neutral space, what's an example of, because that's going to be culturally very different, right? In the United States, we have a culture where people will talk to talk show hosts, and they'll talk about all of their intimate details of their life. But if you ask them how much money they make, all of a sudden it's a taboo subject, where that's clearly not universal. If you talk to the people from all over the global communities that we saw, they don't share that. But this idea of finding a safe space, I think is universal. So could you give us either an example of when you did it, or like, what's your recommendation of when you're talking one-on-one, what's the first step that someone in a family dynamic can do to create a safe space so they can have that one-on-one conversation?
Yeah, I think it's trying not to have the conversation in the heat of the moment when they say something and you're like, oh, because that can be counterproductive. You might say something you regret. It's giving yourself time ahead of time to really think through what you want to achieve and what you feel. So the safe space is really to agree on a time that is sort of emotionally neutral, and to recognize that this is difficult. Yeah, I think there are so many, challenging situations with, let's say your parent is the one who created the business, and they're getting older, and you're not sure where they're going to give the money and you want to have that conversation, but you don't want to sound like you're only after money, or maybe it's going to, make your parent kind of face their own, age and what's going to happen next. There's so many different issues that the more we kind of guess at those issues, I think the more we get tangled up. I think we have to, create that safe space, have that conversation. It's scary because you don't know. We don't want to be rejected. And what we really all want is to be seen and understood. We want connection. I mean, that's really ultimately kind of what we crave as human beings.
I think that was such a great, I could talk to you for hours. And so I think that's an amazing, great place to pause. Like, we all crave connection. We want that safe space. Look, there's so many elements in terms of, like, I highly, highly recommend the book, because there's conversation not only in the book, but in NxtGen Nexus on the website and other places think about all the family foundations, family charities, especially in the world and the needs today, where families have always played such an oversized role. I know that's an issue that's near and dear. So I know there's so many things we're going to do. We could talk to you about. What I guess I'm unfortunately going to need to do is sort of leave the audience wanting a little bit more, which is not a bad thing. So let's do this. So for people who want to continue this conversation with you, let's sort of bring up the slide. And there is a question. I think the question was, do you believe that money scripts are, so what I'm going to suggest is, because in the interest of time, it's a fabulous question. We can repeat it sort of in the chat, is we brought up on the screen if people want to get hold of Jennifer Risher, this is as easy as we can. She's made the marketing and the branding of this super simple. JenniferRisher.com. Go to her contact page. Just put your question there. She's also going to be a contributor in the future as part of what we're doing. And so this is the beginning of a conversation. And again, can't say it any more clearly than Jennifer's title. When it comes to money, we need to talk. A memoir about wealth, whether even if Amazon and Microsoft aren't in your future, there's so much to learn from this amazing book. And it's almost going to hold up a mirror to you. You're going to pick out stories that resonate with you and your family. And Jen, we know you have lots and lots of places where you could spend your time. So thank you for your generosity and taking some of your time and sharing it with us. Thank you so much. So with that, and I do hope, and it's amazing comments, so you can see them as we're talking. And as we're going to sort of give ourselves a little chance to make a transition here, we have another fabulous speaker coming up. And so, but you'll see there are pictures about money habits, there are questions about a wealthy stepmom. And so part of what we're trying to do is exactly what Jennifer has already started to do, which is to act as a catalyst to begin a conversation going. This isn't the kind of money and family isn't a conversation that you can do in one 15 or 20-minute interview. You can do it for hours and hours. So what I'm going to go do is just make sure, give me a second here, making sure that we are teed up to bring you in this virtual live presentation, making sure our next guest is ready. And so with that, let's talk to the business part of family-owned business. So Jen did a masterful job about talking about the interplay of emotions and how do you talk about money. Our next presenter, our next guest, if you will, is someone who's going to talk about the business part of it. So what we're going to do is we're just going to jump right and let me introduce him to you. His name is Sasha Strauss, and I am couldn't be happier. When I heard that Sasha was going to be part of this, I was really excited, and because I had heard of Sasha for a long time, but this was the first time I really got a chance to interact with him. And here's what you need to know about Sasha. If you're thinking about family-owned businesses and this long global history, you always need to go innovate. And Sasha Strauss is literally one of the leading thinkers about branding and innovation. He has 25 years of experience in brand strategy. He's defined brands for leading corporations, charities, academic institutions all over the world. And as you're about to see, Sasha brings, how do I say it, a very distinct and direct approach to how you should construct a brand, how you should communicate about it. And his approach has been the foundation of brand strategies for a few little companies that you may have heard of. He runs a company called Innovation Protocol, and some of their clients over the last 14 years have been companies such as Google, Nestle, this amazing consulting firm called Korn Ferry, Lego, PayPal, and Disney. And one of the things that makes him such a great contributor to this venue, to NxtGen Nexus, is that he really lives and breathes the value of educating and sharing what he knows with others. He really takes teaching to heart. He teaches not at one MBA program, he teaches at 3 different graduate business programs in California, all about brand strategy. We could not have chosen a better person to talk about the business side of family business. I am delighted that Sasha Strauss is here to share some of his wisdom. Please join me in welcoming Sasha Strauss. The floor is all yours, Sasha.
Thank you so much, Gideon. Oh my gosh. Applause at the end, folks. Let's just see if it's worth it. Thank you so much for giving me this chance to share with you. And it's an honor to be here and to talk with you now. I recognize that we're all probably tired of being on Zooms. So frustrating that this is the way we have to work. This is the way we love our family. We spend all of our time in front of this camera trying to have our human relationship. So I thought just for our 20 minutes together, I'd try to bend the arc a little bit and change your experience. I'm going to use a little armature here. device I made with some tools I got from my dad. My dad's an orthopedic surgeon, like bones and muscles and joints. And he uses these mechanisms to restructure people's bones. Well, anyway, after he's used them, he kind of gives them to me and I make art and projects with them. I'm going to use it to hold information. Okay. So I'm going to open up our conversation right now by saying farewell 2021, farewell 2020, 21. I know you're here. I know you're here. But let's just say that I think our job as business leaders is to take a grappling hook, swing it over our head, and throw it at 2022 and pull our family and our companies as fast as possible to 2022. I think because of the lockdowns and elections and everything else that's happening, we're kind of in a situation that warrants some additional thinking. So if you're down to go on this journey with me, how you and I are going to chase 2022 to lead our businesses to the future, that's going to be the conversation. You notice, by the way, that Heath just picked up his phone to take a picture. In these environments, it's hard to do learning the old way, with your notepad and whatever. So whatever your style is, if you're a stand-upper, a sitter-downer, a yoga while watching-er, if you're a note taker, picture taker, it's all good. And I'll zoom in here so that you can have a little bit better perspective on what card I'm showing. All right. So let's just put it out there. I think that when we talk about COVID, all of us think about the disease, feel the disease, see the disease. It's crazy. It's overwhelming. And I don't want to take an ounce of energy away from that. But what I want to say to all of us as business leaders, we have to be thinking about COVID, the economy, as just as destructive. Think about your businesses. Are your customers behaving the same way as they did 2 years ago? Not at all. How about the consumer on the very end of the deal? They're not behaving the same way. How about your competition? How about your category? I mean, you get it. Every one of our worlds has transformed. And so what does that put on us as business leaders? Well, I'm at pose like, well, what are you going to do about it? All right. What are you going to do about it? And how are you going to shine given the state of the crisis? So let me put out there that the first obligation is to recognize that these new lifestyles we're living, this new way that we connect with family, this new way we do business, the new way we interact with our banker, that stuff, it's actually changing full human behaviors that are absolutely different now. I'll give you a fun example from my clients in Europe. One of them is the European Broadcasting Union, which is the consortium of all the 70 news channels and public media channels in Europe. And it's so interesting. They used to only do television, like you turn it on and it streams, it's linear, and their website. And that would be the only two places where they had information. Given COVID, they've had to do TikTok and Instagram and LinkedIn and create 10-second shorts and 30-second shorts and change the way that they share their media. Well, you could say, darn kids and their social media, or you can say, wait a minute, wow, everyone's using these tools. This is the new way to communicate. And so I want to put out there for us to think about as business leaders, like, all right, well, what has changed? What has fundamentally changed? I'll preface this by saying I'm not a good drawer. I make these cards to facilitate my conversations, so some of them will not be pretty, all right? Here's an example of one that I did not do a good job of. I'm trying to project that in 2020, we did not know that stationary bikes were going to be back on the train. Do you guys remember when stationary bikes were cool? You remember that? Okay, now they're cool again. Okay, other things, we did not know that everybody was going to be baking bread at home. And so, home electronics are just through the roof. Record year for home electronics. You can't even get a blender. I mean, it's unbelievable. Okay, so all these 2020 things happened. What I want us to think about as leaders, as innovators, as guides is, well, what's going to happen in 2022 and how do we bridge the gap? Now, what my bad writing says here is, well, the government's dumping trillions and trillions and trillions. Well, that money's got to go somewhere. So where's it going to go? How about that seniors, people traditionally classified as non-internet savvy, became internet savvy. They went from boomer to zoomer in like half an hour. Okay. They're all like ordering their groceries online and picking them up on the curb. I mean, you understand that these are like fundamentally new human behaviors that we are not going to neglect. And so what I want to think about with you and what I'm here to push you on is, gosh darn it, what's changing and how is my organization enterprise going to adapt? The adaptation is going to require a little resilience on your part. Let me give you an example about the adaptation resilience I'm asking about. I hate all of these things, all of these social media things, I hate them, but it's business. It's the radio of the day. It's the television of the day. It's the vehicle of communication for the day. And I just want to point out that as fast as I can draw them on this card, new ones are showing up. Let me take a poll really quick for the folks on video. Who has heard of the app Clubhouse? Okay, like three or four of us, the nerds on the call, we're like, oh, I have downloaded the app. Okay, so I'm telling you, 60 days ago, nobody cared. Nobody cared. And now, if you're not thinking about how to use Clubhouse, you're behind the times. Don't worry, we'll have time in future sessions to talk about what these things are and aren't. But the reason why I want you to really think about it is because these social media tools have actually changed the way that we work. What I mean, let me give you an example. You know how in social media, when someone posts something, you put a little click, like a like or a heart, okay? Well, now that all of our businesses are using these virtual tools, work from home technologies, now when a coworker pushes something, puts it up, we click like on it. We give it a heart, we give it a thumbs up. It's unbelievable how we have completely changed the way that we work. And so what I want to put out for all of you is there's certain characteristics that are enabling leaders to lead, even though we can't go see our people. And so I want to say to you, look, if you used to lead in the conference room, you're going to have to keep leading virtually. This is about delivering remotely. Or maybe you're an educator. Listen, I'm teaching at 3 schools. You think I'm like crying about not getting in the classroom? No, I'm making the best out of this possible channel. And so one thing that I've seen across categories, doesn't matter if you're in farming or aerospace, is that when the leaders are like fine with this and are acting out in this channel, their followers are following. Your community is listening and participating. And so this is some of the pressure I'm putting on you, is to think about your business in the way that it works now and not be so offended and scared by this Zoom vehicle, and recognize that, wow, you've never been able to connect with so many family at the same time. Or you've never been able to have your international sales reps all hang out at the same time. And so those changes are going to force you to think about your leadership in 3 new ways. Excuse how didactic this is, but let me talk about my silliness here. Trifecta affecta. 3 things I want you to do that are absolutely going to affect the way that you think and run your business. Let me give you the first one. It used to be that we used to be able to just make money. Okay? You and we used to make money. Okay? And then people started asking us about it and looking online and trying to assess why and how and where that money came from. And then it became a priority that we not only could make money, but we have to make money and help other people while we make that money. Okay? And so what I say to you is that if you are not thinking about the impact that you're making, if you're not thinking about your business in a way that gives back, you'll still make money, but you're going to lose your audience. Family and friends and coworkers and colleagues and category voices are going to abandon you because they don't want to just know how you make money. They want to know how you make change with your money. Let me give you an example. At our firm, Innovation Protocol, we only do one thing, brand strategy. Well, guess what? Nonprofits need brand strategy too. So we take our mastery, our expertise that we charge a lot of money for, and we do it for free for the nonprofits. It makes sense to everybody. Oh, you do your best practice for free for an organization that needs it. That means that you need to work like an impactor. I want you to think about your work, not just in the revenue it creates, but the impact that it will have on our communities. To that degree, I promise you, no matter what gen your business, second, third, fourth, or otherwise, guess what? The economy doesn't work the same anymore. Financial transactions don't work the same anymore. Buying behaviors are not the same anymore. So you get to enterprise like a maker. You actually get to rethink a little bit about the way that the business works, simply because human behavior warrants that change. Now you don't have to fight with the family elder and say, gosh darn it, if you'd only be cool. You get to say to the family elder, look how interesting these new consumer behaviors are. Wow, people are making multi-million-dollar decisions sight unseen. Great, well, how do we show up in the way that they're making decisions now? That means you need to enterprise like a maker. The third piece, the thing that I think is the most important, is I want you to stop waking up every day and saying, how am I as a family business leader going to conquer this day? Conquer this day, this moment right now. I'm telling you, it's not going to work that way. I want you to be thinking in 3 months, 6 months, 12-month terms. That's how long it's going to take us to extract ourselves from this crisis. Not to mention we have a whole bunch of other world crises to address at the same time. And so that's why I'm asking you to think like a strategist. And this is going to round out my conversation here with you for the last 5 minutes. What do I mean by thinking like a strategist? Thinking like a strategist does not mean setting one goal. Thinking like a strategist is about setting 100 goals. Small goals, big goals, expensive goals, cheap goals, new goals, old goals, and looking at your next 6 months as an array of milestones where collectively you can achieve change. Collectively, you can advance your organization. Let me first admit where I'm coming from and tell you why this is important, okay? As Gideon mentioned, I really do 3 things. I teach at universities, only one thing, brand strategy. I run a company that I started called Innovation Protocol. It's a brand strategy consulting firm. And third, I give speeches at conferences and webinars. And everywhere I teach, everywhere I speak, everyone has come to understand that if we do not lead our organization's voice, who is our organization? Why does our organization matter? Or for our family business clients, who is our family? Why does our family matter? What will happen to the world because our family was here? Those types of questions require a very specific mentality. A mentality that means every time I hear you talk, every time I read your website, every time I watch a video, every time I speak to a beneficiary of your philanthropy, there's a common resonance, some common, consistent, durable consideration that gives your family equity. Not just the financial equity. I'm talking about social equity. I'm talking about employee equity, where everyone feels connected to what you're doing. I'm going to ask a question. Is this beyond your want as a person? I think all of you want this thing. What I'm saying to you now is anyone within your circle of influence is desperately asking for this. And this is the time in the history of your business to do it. All right. I'm going to give you 2 homework assignments and then I'm going to be off the mic. Okay. What I want you to think about is that your business is made up of a lot of different parts. For example, there's the functional value that you deliver every day, the product you create, the service that you render. All right, that's fine. I actually implore you to be as specific and intentional about that description as possible. In the branding world, we call that brand mission, but you get it. This is how we make. This is the functional value. This is the core of our business. This is what we do every day. I know it sounds crazy, but we often neglect this as the starting point because what it does is it unlocks our ability to be visionary. And this is the thing I want you to be the most of. By the way, that's your job in the family business realm. I promise you, I don't care if you're really good at lifting boxes or writing computer code or selling, your first and foremost job is to be the chief believer. That's the job. That's your role. That's your legacy. Chief believer. All right, well, what does that mean in the branding business? Well, to define where this could go. What could happen to the world if these things go well? And I know you've heard these phrases before, but you know, whatever the inspired future might be. Imagine if I come to work every day and I know what our mission is. I know what we're functionally here to do. And I know what could possibly happen to the world if we get this right. That kind of thing coming from a leader like you is what's going to enable your business to endure. Not only endure, but come out the other side of COVID as a darling, as the champion. So I know that was a lot fast, and I tried to keep my content engaging. But I promise there's a lot more on the other side of this. So I'll just say, if there's anything that you remember from me, your job is to be the chief believer in your family, your literal household unit, in your family business and all that are involved, in the relationships with the customers that you participate in. That's your job now. Be the one who's the most explicit, the most intentional, the most focused on the outcome. And that itself is not only going to drive business forward, but this is where I'm willing to go on the record and tell you this. No matter what side of the government you're on, I don't think government's going to save us. No matter what side of nationality you're on, I don't think nations are going to save us. I don't think academia is going to save us. I don't think religion's going to save us. I think the only thing that's going to keep this world moving forward are business people like you and me doing business, collaborating, inspiring, growing talent, moving markets, creating deals, enabling transactions. That's internationalism. That's community. That's collectivism. That's us all caring about each other together. And I think this is a once in a family lifetime chance for you to make a mark that becomes part of the heritage of your organization and its future. Thank you for listening. An honor to be here with you. I'll hand the mic back to Gideon, and I look forward to our next Connect.
sometimes the best thing I can do is just say nothing and let that sink in part because you don't want to be the poor slob who talks after that presentation, but I'm honored to be in that role. So if you think about what it literally says in the invitation to this event, NxtGen Nexus, empowering the next generation in family business, whether you think of it as be the train, be the visionary, it is literally the global message of how we're going to change the world and how you're going to change your family. And if you are wondering, hey, am I too young? I'm the second, third generation. Can I be heard? Getting back to what Jen said, or is my sibling, is my father, my mother, my grandmother, my great uncle, my aunt going to listen to me? There's never been a better time. There's never been a better moment for second and third next gens to make their mark on this world. And so if you enjoyed that, and one of the other things that Sasha is a great example of is the commitment of this organization to education and curriculum. So if you liked 15 or 20 minutes of Sasha Strauss, I invite you to go join us, check out the website in March. Sasha is going to be back doing a program. You think you might be able to help you and your family think through some business issues. Thank you, Sasha, so much. And there really is, with that, only one other person who is appropriate to talk to right now. And that is the person who made all of this possible, the founder, the brainchild, the person who started and initiated and discovered and created NxtGen Nexus. So let's talk to Alan Esrock. Let's talk to him for just a few more minutes. Alan, welcome. And it is delightful to talk to you again.
Thank you, Gideon. So this has been terrific, and it's interesting listening to Jen and listening to Sasha, because you put them together and their messages together, and they've basically described NxtGen Nexus better than I could ever describe it. But I'm going to go for it anyway. And I'm going to give you a little background about my history and how we got here. I'm from a family business, and my family business story is different, but it's unique because it's my family business story. My grandfather started Barney's Army Store in St. Louis, Missouri, and they sold big and tall men's military clothing. This was in the 1920s. Fast forward past World War II, my father, Elmer, and my mom got married. And then eventually my dad started working in the family business for his mother-in-law because my grandfather died. A couple years later, my father and my Uncle Ralph, started Big Men Shops. And this was a clothing chain for big and tall men in St. Louis, and it eventually grew to 14 stores and was quite successful. So after college, I went into a buyer's training program at a Macy's department store in Atlanta. And I have to tell you, I enjoyed it, enjoyed training, but then I was named my first job. I was the manager of the children's section in the downtown store. And to be quite honest, I was fantastic. I was the greatest thing they'd ever seen in their life. And it's pretty simple because I'd spent my weekends, my summers, my holidays, anytime they could squeeze me in a store, selling 3X, that's 1X, 2X, 3X leisure suits in lime green and canary yellow to rather big men, and had to convince them that one wasn't good enough. They needed to have both of those in their closet. I did an okay job of it. So all of a sudden, I'm on the floor of this children's section, and I'm having new grandmothers come up to me wanting to buy something for their granddaughter. So of course I said to them, oh, you should buy 5 pink onesies because then your grandchild will love you 5 times as much. So of course, that was a pretty easy sell. So things are going pretty well, except there's a problem. I wanted to be a television comedy writer. It was kind of my thing. And there's even a bigger problem, which is really the more universal problem, is I had no one to talk about this stuff with. I couldn't talk about it with my cousin Brad because he wanted me to come back to St. Louis and go into business. I couldn't talk about it with my sister Ellen because her attitude was just go for it and then go for it again. And I really couldn't talk about it with my father because we only exchanged about 7 words every year. And that would have just kind of blown the deck off of that. Anyway, age of 23, moved to LA, achieved my goal, became a television writer, and I really hated it. I hated it so much that it's hard to explain and put into words how much I hated it. So anyway, I had to have a living. I was married. I had children. So I became an executive recruiter. I started companies. I got to play a lot of great tennis, a lot better tennis than St. Louis. So that was all okay. And it ended up that my dad didn't want my cousin as his business partner. So he sold the business. So everything's going along fine. About 5 years ago, I was asked to speak at a family business conference in Boston. So I wrote an article entitled Recruit Tom Brady for Your Family-Owned Business. And if you know football and you know Boston, you know that this was one of the greatest articles they'd ever read in their life. So I'm doing my research on the article, and I realized the following: succession is still the biggest issue for families, for next gens, for their trusted advisors. There was now a lot more material about family business. You could actually get your PhD in family business. So that was a great thing. But the problem was people were talking about next gens, but no one's talking about how to actually communicate with them and what are their needs. As Sasha says, communicate differently. How do you make that happen? So I went to this conference. There were about 125 people there. 3 of them were under 30 years old. And I said to each one the same question I have faced so many years ago. Where do you go to get advice from your family? Where's your community? Where's your tribe? And that's really kind of what brought us to and brought me to creating NxtGen Nexus. So what is this thing that we're creating? Kathleen, thank you. NxtGen Nexus is a local global community of family business and family office next gens who are running the business, and in some cases, running from the business. And this is a really important part of this conversation because my sister, Ellen, had no concept about being in the family business. It was just never going to happen. And we knew that from 3 years old. However, she sat at the same dinner table with us when my dad would come home and complain about his salespeople. We went to the same restaurant on Christmas Eve every year because Santa Claus was one of our clients. He was a big guy. She shared the same problems with in-laws and strife within the family business. And she lost a little part of her soul when we ended up selling business, as all of us did. So that's why we did this. And that's what NxtGen Nexus is. And one of the things we really believe strongly is local community. So we've created NxtGen Nexus LA. And Kathleen, I can't see the screen, and hopefully others can. Anyway, we've created NxtGen Nexus LA, and it's a community of family business people revolving around the local market. And that's really important because the local market is where family business is centered. It's where your legacy is. It's where your advisors are. It's everything. It's where you go to family business dinners. And it's so important. And it's all about family real estate. And it's all about family philanthropy. It's all about social impact. And it's all about trusted advisors who you could work with. As Gideon mentioned, it's also all about education. And one of the things we're most excited about is our NGN LA educational program, where we're going to have just extraordinary speakers like Sasha, Eric Sussman from UCLA, who was named the Teacher of the Year 15 times in a row. Just really wonderful, wonderful speakers, all there to contribute to their community. We also know that this is global, and we have global resources that we put against this. You didn't hear 100%, but you met a lot of our advisors around the world who are really dedicated to this cause. And one of the things we're really excited about and proud of is our commitment to family business centers. These are local educational programs around the world. We have a few listed here, and it's all about helping their local communities in their families, leading gens, next gens, and I think we probably have the largest directory of family business centers in the world. And if we don't, we will, because this is something that I think we really need to be dedicated to. There's also another part of this that isn't really associated with family business, and that's the word fun. Because let's face it, not every time people talk about family business, they talk about fun. The difference is, though, that if you're from a family business, you have a prism, how you look at the world. And so what we want to do is start building that prism of looking through the world. And that comes down to media, it comes down to monarchy, comes down to a lot of things. I mean, personally, when I think about the TV show Game of Thrones, well, to me, that's just a story about 9 family businesses trying to be the lead family business. We have the Super Bowl coming up next weekend, and that's a battle between 2 enterprising family-owned teams. And of course, one of my favorite family business movies is Psycho, because you have Norman Bates and you have his mom. And once again, this might not be the way everyone thinks about this movie, but we're a tribe, we're a group of people who view things the same way. So it's really important to keep that in mind, because we're trying to spread the word about family business and about family business fun, and it's got to be about sharing. Of course, Jen talked about this. It's most of all, it's all about community. Our job, if we get this right, is to help you help us build a next-gen family business community. And this is going to look like a couple different things because, of course, we have different people who are involved in this. One of those groups of people who are involved are the next gens. So we've created, and we ask who you are. So if you're a next gen, we've created an entire world of you for you called NxtGen Connect. And in this NxtGen Connect world, we ask you to meet other family business next gens just like you. There's a 2-part sign-up process to this. And the first part is we ask you to give us information, where you're from, city, province, country, because we want you to connect with people around the world, so you're going to have to let us know where you're from. We also ask for you to give us your social media channel. Well, why is that? Once again, we're trying to create connection, and this is a source of information about who you are. And of course, as we're doing this, it goes without saying that no information is being shared. Everything is private. If you ever want to reveal who you are and connect with anyone, that is your decision. So step one, if you're NxtGen and you want to join NxtGen Connect, is just sign up. Now, I'm going to do a little research, and our team is going to do a little research about you after you sign up, because we just want to make sure this is an authentic NxtGen Nexus and a NxtGen network. So once you've been certified 100% NxtGen, we then ask you more questions about who you are. Are you an in-law? What type of business? I mean, could you imagine like going into the bar and start saying to people, so are you an in-law in the family business? That's not going to happen. We want to know if you're part of a family business or a family office. We want to know if you guys still have ownership in the business. How big is it? How many members? These are questions that in our family business world, they come up every day. But in this world, the big world, as Jen said, how do you start having these conversations with people? And then of course, we give people their choices of what are their main family business concerns. And you see a few of them. A lot of them is, how do I do ESG investing? Does that matter? How do I deal with siblings? I mean, we have every, what if someone's an alcoholic, which is terrible if you have an uncle who's an alcoholic or cousin, but what if they're running manufacturing for your company? Every problem you have is intensified by family business. So after you fill this out, you hit the submit button, Kathleen, and you start doing some stuff and you start going behind the scenes, and there you start seeing NxtGen Connect, and you start seeing how you can connect with people. So here's a fair connection with a woman in San Pedro Garza. They're both second generation. They're not an in-law. They're a small business, fewer than 10 people, and it's a family business. So let's say I want to connect. Well, I hit connect request, and then on the right, you see the email that goes out that describes who you are, describes the relationships. I've told my family business story, and now someone can make a decision like, yeah, I might be going to Los Angeles next week. I'd like to know someone in a family business. So once again, it's all about trying to engage you guys. The other element of this is that there are trusted advisors out there, and they have such a huge role to play in the lives of family business, and quite honestly, in the life of NxtGen Nexus. Because a great advisor, RIA, lawyer, accountant, a marketer like Sasha, human capital, they're the keys to helping you grow and sustain your business. So we want to bring them together. We'll be creating a directory for them. And the other thing we're going to do is we're going to push them really hard so they understand that they need to adopt to how the next generation thinks, because we're not taking cell phones away from anyone. We're only pushing forward, and the only way someone is going to be able to help a next gen is to be able to think and respect and understand how they communicate and what matters to them. So here's the bottom line to why I'm here and why I'm doing this. I'm a family business groupie. I have to confess, I think and I know There's so much power and so much possibilities by connecting the family business community together. Sasha was right. It's not religion, it's not politics, it's families working together. So now it's up to you as a member of a family business, NxtGen. Check us out, share, be part of the community, connect with others. This is what we've heard you've wanted, so now you have a chance to do it. If you're an advisor, tell your clients about this. They need this. This is really important to them. This is how they finally can answer those questions that have been plaguing family business people and family NxtGens for years. I think, and I truly believe that together, and it's only going to happen if we're working together, that we can demolish that third generation wall. We can obliterate that whole notion of shirt sleeves to shirt sleeves in 3 generations. We got a chance to do something truly extraordinary. And I'm excited to be able to be part of this. And I'm excited to see where you're going to take everything. Thank you.
So everyone, so let me just, again, so we've shared a lot. There's a lot to absorb. So let's keep this really short and simple. If you believe what we believe, that family business is going to change the world, and that next second and third and fourth generation has a bigger role to play. And if you want to make sure that you never have to have the issue that Alan had, where he had no one to talk to about his dreams, that he didn't want to be in the family business. If you want to have issues, if you have questions about money and you have no one to talk to, if you want to figure out how am I going to drive this company forward, how are we going to innovate, and you want to apply some of what Sasha and other our contributors are going to share with you, this is the place, this is the platform, and the first step is just go to nextgennexus.com. If you're a family, if you're a NxtGen, sign up in that mode. If you're an advisor, sign up in that mode. And together, let's go change the world, because no one else is going to. So with that, let us, for people who want to stick around, we're obviously will stick around, but we thank you so much for your time. I hope you really join us. You're on the ground floor. This is a launch party. As you can tell, we didn't practice this somewhere else, and you're getting the 18th. This is the launch, and we're delighted you're part of this with us. So let's do this together, spread the word. Thanks again to Jen Risher. I'm always happy to hold up this book. We need to talk, we need to share, we need to talk about money and wealth and family. In my family business, it was my grandfather thought that women are incapable of running businesses, so he froze out his daughter for 30 years, basically made her a secretarial admin. The irony being that when he finally stepped aside, she and her husband made more money in 2 years than he made in the prior 40. So everyone has something in this world where I wish I had someone to talk to. This is a huge part of the solution. So let's do it together. Thank you again, not only to Jen, Sasha, thank you for your time. Thank you all of you for being here. And let's change the world. And if you do want to stick around, we will happily stick around and continue this conversation. Thank you, everybody.